That'd be dope. Oh, I know why. Because I'm looking at the wrong side. It's a little too dark. Okay, I'll check that in just a second. Let's see, I will increase the ISO a little bit. That should be a good bit better. Change that view. That should work. All right. Okay, I'm gonna actually start now. So today, welcome to the stream. I'm probably gonna cut off all that stuff at the beginning because it was so long of messing around with my setup. But anyway, today we're going to be working on this bad boy, 12S 8P battery. And if you weren't here for last stream, the last stream I went ahead and designed the battery in CAD and figured out the dimensions that I needed for the nickel. And then after that, I went and glued together all of the cells, so all of the cells in parallel, and then all of the cells in series. In case you're wondering, in between each of these parallel groups, in between each of these series groups, there is, in fact, fish paper. And you should be able to see a couple of the little tails hanging out here because they were a little long. Somebody asked me if there is fish paper in it because you can't really see it from the outside. And yes, there definitely is. And the main reason that I went with these little strips instead of full pieces is because full pieces are wasteful. And these are the only places that these batteries touch, so it's really the only place that you need to have fish paper in between the cells. So that is all sorted out. And now we're going to probably just go ahead and start cutting the nickel. And then hopefully I will be able to get to the actual welding of the cells. I got my K-weld and my battery charged and everything. So, but yeah, first we're going to start by cutting up all of the nickel. I think this should go pretty fast. I'm just literally using normal scissors because this nickel is 0.15 thick by 30. And it's very soft, so I don't think regular scissors will have any problem cutting up this nickel. So I'm going to switch up my view here real quick, so we'll pick you guys up. And place you in a better position. Probably going to switch the lens real quick. Oh, I just realized this is the wrong mount. That was dumb. I forgot I can just pick up the slider. Boy, oh boy. I look like a real noob today on stream. I swear it went much smoother the last time, but bear with me. Oh my god. Bruh. Am I really trying to put this on backwards right now? Oh my god, there we go, finally. Okay, so let's see. I think this is what we'll want to do, except I don't really want my phone in it, so I guess I'll move that. There we go. And now we have the camera set to go. Let's get that on manual. And now we can switch to this one. And you can see This will work, I think. Perfect. And now close all this down because I don't need to be putting that up there and this down there. All right, there we go. Now we can get into actually doing stuff. And I forgot to click transition on the scene. Amazing. Transition. All right. Now you guys are going to see both directions, except that it's backwards. Oh my God, fam, why is this the most clap stream ever? I want to restart. This is sad. Why are these flip-flopped? Let me just go to that so I can fix the freaking thing. Okay, thank goodness. This should be correct now. There we go. Now it is set up properly. So let's go ahead and start cutting up this nickel. So you've got lots of nickel here in a gigantic roll. I think the easiest way to do this is just going to be to set it on a box so that it can rotate without scratching up my desk. And little hint there, got that Maker's PEV box. See some one-wheel content coming in the future. What's up? I think that's Mark. How's it going? And I agree. All them cells looking good. Now we've got all this nickel looking good here. It's time to cut it up. Now, one downside of working with this gigantic roll is that it can be a little hard to work with sometimes. Now, this nickel is very soft, which makes it very flexible, and sometimes it can make it a little hard to cut because it wants to flop everywhere. So I think we'll go ahead and flatten this out, snip the end off. What's up? How's it going? After going through quote-unquote technical difficulties for like 10 minutes, we're actually here doing stuff properly, so you joined at the right time. I think I'm going to be able to stream for another hour and a half or so, so you've got plenty of time to watch me work on stuff and ask questions and all that good stuff. So, if you didn't hear earlier, this piece of paper I have is the nickel template that I will be cutting over and over again for this battery. And we're going to need, let's see, we'll count up here on the actual battery. So each end will need a discharge strip. So positive discharge will be the positive lead, and then negative discharge on the other side will be the negative lead. Those will need to be slightly different than the other ones. They'll be a little bit shorter since the ends we're not going to be cutting at an angle. And then we need series connections. So each side, it looks like we'll need 6. So one here, move it over a little more. So 1, and then 2, and then 3, and then 4, and then 5, and then we have the positive discharge, so that's 5. And then on the other side, it needs to be pretty much every one. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we need 5 plus 6 of them, which is 11 pieces. So we will need to cut 11 of these same size ones with the angles on the end. So we're going to go ahead and double check that this is the right length, which it definitely should be. Cool. Yeah, that'll work just fine. And then I'll cut off the angles on here. All right, now. Time to cut up the rest of the strips. I'm just going to be using pencil to mark these out. I guess it wouldn't matter too much if I use Sharpie or something, because I probably would want to give them a quick wipe with acetone anyway, but it doesn't matter too much. Yeah, I'm not gonna use the paper every time. I'm just using the piece of nickel to cut the rest. The paper was really just to get the first one perfect, and especially for the angles at the end, because I want the angles to be the same. So it's like measured out on the actual piece of paper. I suppose I could have done it with the nickel, but I found it easier to do with the paper anyway. And another reason to do the model in CAD and stuff, like the whole extra thing that I did last time, is so you can like calculate exactly how much length you have and not have to worry about doing it while you're using your nickel and stuff. I've got like an Excel sheet with my total length of nickel that I will be decrementing from each time I use stuff off this roll, so I know how much is left. But yes, definitely is easier to measure off of a piece of nickel than off of a piece of paper, because paper just flexes and is annoying. So alright, we got a couple pieces here now. We got just enough on this last piece to have a tiny sliver extra on the end. It's pretty funny. How many is that? I think that's 5. One, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yo, what's up, Kyle? Yes, indeed. Your battery is live on stream for all to see. And I'm currently cutting the nickel for it. And we've got 5 out of 11 pieces cut. So, for y'all who don't know, Kyle in the chat is one of the major faces of SDE Skate. So myself, two others are kind of like, I guess you could say admins. I don't know. It's kind of weird to say that as an actual person rather than like a group moderator. But the owner, Sebastian, I think co-owner, Kyle, you co-own SDE Skate, right? I don't remember. But he is one of the major faces of SDE Skate, and we had an amazing event last weekend called Best in the West Fest 22, and we had a lot of riders there. I don't know exactly how many were on the ride, probably about 100 something, but there were over 200 people on the Facebook attendee list, and I imagine there were somewhere around 200 during the actual event. And then we hosted a gigantic group ride through downtown and Liberty Station, and it was a ton of fun. Everyone's e-skate scenes in your area are going to be slightly different, but ours, we are fortunate enough to have a very active community. I'm not sure which e-skate Discord you're talking about. I'm not aware. Wait, I guess... No, someone did post about one on the forum the other day, but I didn't get around to joining it. Is it pretty big? I agree, Trent. It was awesome. I wish your board or your truck hadn't fallen off. Would have been fun to experience the whole thing, but 186, huh? Did you count all of those, Kyle? Ah, I see. Maybe I should join it. I could post my stream in there and maybe more people will watch it. Just kidding. I'm just doing these streams for fun, so I don't really care how many people watch it. It's just for entertainment anyway, so. Thank you guys for being here. It's always fun to come and chat to people. Chat with people? I don't know. You get it. About 70? Yeah, no, it was not 70. Some of our, like, quote-unquote large group rides are around 70, but definitely not this. This is way above that. That's interesting. Yeah, I'm not NorCal, I'm SoCal. Hence SDE skate reppin'. Yeah, I mean, I should definitely try and share it there. I didn't even share this on Reddit because I don't know if you can share a link like that. Can you share a link to a live stream? Is that possible? I'm not sure, but hey, if you want to share it there, feel free. I will look into getting in there afterwards. We used to have a forum Discord, and then it just kind of died. Off the Reddit? Really? They don't remove any of my videos that I post there. Is it because it's live? Is that not allowed? Also, why is the picture quality like super low for you guys? It looks like really low resolution on my phone. Really? Off the Reddit? They never removed any of my videos. Are you risky riding in your content, Kyle? Be like, be like Cody and post your video on the Reddit of people yelling at you for your aggressive riding style. Weird. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Perfecto. What's up, Marcel? How's it going? You're lucky you're joining so late. I had a bunch of complications at the beginning of this stream. It was a mess. Yeah, that sounds exactly like him. So, we've got 11 of these, 5 for the top. Six for the bottom. I'm doing good. I wish the beginning of this stream went smoother, but YouTube was being a little weird compared to Twitch. It made it much more difficult for some dumb reason. I'm sure people that have built batteries are looking at this setup right here and cringing their Yes, thank you, Evan. That's exactly what I was going to say. The only reason I can put these all up here right now is because none of them are connected yet. So as soon as I start connecting these together with welds, this will be off the table. But this is what it's going to look like. So discharge strip on the positive and negative, all the series strips along the top, and we'll be good. So I think I'm going to cut the positive and negative, and then we'll do all the trimming on the edges. What's up, dude? How's it going? Good to see you in the stream. I'm going to tilt this down a little bit more so y'all can see better. And now we're going to go ahead and trim up all the corners of this nickel, since it's going to be going on positive and negative sides. We want to make sure all the corners are nice and rounded so that we don't have sharp nickel strips sticking into the corners of the cell. Dude, I know. You see the Maker's PEV box over here? This has got some of the stuff in it. I know I've been teasing it for a while. I just keep like having things come up and then it gets pushed back a little more. And then I also have 2 like other DIY builds that are sitting on my shelf. You might be able to see them right here. I can't see it when the stream catches up. It's like a second or 2 behind. Yeah, like right there. There's a couple of DIY builds that are supposed to be going on the channel, but they have not yet. So if you can see here, the strip that I cut here is actually a little bit longer than I wanted, but that's fine because it's always good to have a little extra to cut off the corners. What the heck is that emote? Is that a cat in a box? I forgot to see what emotes I have turned on. So I'm going to mark out the angles here. I will cut them on this first piece. Since it's a little bit long, I have a little bit extra. Of course, Kyle, have a good day. Thanks for dropping by. Burrito. Who's that burrito? All right, that seems to be around where I want to cut that. It's a little bit hard to estimate curves and stuff sometimes. And I have these corner chompers, which you guys might have seen in one of the other battery videos before, but they're getting kind of dull. So I'm going to try it here and see if it works again, because this nickel strip has a little bit extra on it. Yeah. So this is what's been happening lately. The let's see if this always on manual. Yeah, so these corner chompers were good for a long time, but then they got dull and they start not cutting all the way through. And honestly, it just becomes more annoying than if you were to just use scissors in the first place. So we're probably just going to go ahead and use scissors for all this because I just can't be asked to pick off these incredibly sharp nickel bits every time. So we'll just make nice little round cuts like that. You're not going to see that again. There you go. Nice little round cuts like that. And then we go ahead and set it down on the pack. Not in this particular location, but you get what I mean. You have a nice rounded edge that goes to the edge of the positive on each of the cells. So there we go. And now all I have to do is round off these other corners and cut it down to size. And then we'll go ahead and use this one that I've already cut down as the template for all the other ones. That way we always have the right length. You don't have to worry about anything getting shorted onto the negative terminal of the cells. And if you don't know, the reason why we put fish paper on the positive side of a cell is because the outside of a cell, aka, I'll answer your question in just a second, aka the negative terminal, goes all the way down the cell. So you know, if you've ever seen a 21700 cell without a wrap on it, you'll notice that the entire thing is silver or gray or whatever you want to say, and that is because the entire outside is the negative terminal. So the negative terminal comes all the way up over just to the edge of this positive terminal, and this fish paper ring is an insulator between the nickel and this cell that goes over to the edge. So for the nickel strips, when we round the corners like this, especially next to the positive terminal, what we're preventing is extra nickel sharps or corners from puncturing through that fish paper or puncturing through the plastic ring that's on top of a 21700 cell. So it's a little bit extra. If you've ever looked at foreign batteries, Chinese batteries, anything in cheap devices, you might not see that. But we like to build and be extra cautious in Eastgate. So that is the method that we use. Now I'm not really super happy with this length here, so I'm going to cut it a little bit shorter. Now, anyway, to get to your question, plastic cell holders are cool. However, I find them to be very, very loose. And I actually had a client that wanted me to use cell holders, but we decided that they were going to be too loose for his purposes, and I suggested that he goes with my 3D printed ones instead. So honestly, cell holders are super, super convenient, especially for actually building the pack, because you don't have to do all the stupid fish paper cutting and all that. But they have to be the right size, otherwise you're just making the pack more dangerous by having the cells rattle around in there. So you definitely want to find a balance between how tight the cell is and how easy it is to, you know, put it in, assemble it, and whatnot. So now we have this one piece of nickel that is cut to the correct size, and now we're going to use it as a template for all the other ones. And then all I have to do is a bunch of trimming. And when I say all the other ones, I only mean the series connections. Positive and negative terminals I will need to cut separately because they're going to be a little bit shorter. If you notice, since all these other ones that I'm cutting are series connections, they all have to span this extra diagonal bit. But for the positive and negative, it's just the cells. There's no diagonal bit. So you can afford to make them a little bit shorter. Makes it a little bit cleaner. fly laser cut nickel. That would be pretty sweet. If you could just, well, I mean, technically I could do that. I mean, if I had a powerful enough laser cutter. Just get a nice CO2 laser cutter. Then you can export your DXF files straight to it and just have custom cut nickel for every battery. Now I just have to get my wife on board and get a nice laser cutter in the back here. Can you imagine that? That would be great. No, the only problem with like metal laser cutters is a lot of times they need like a huge ventilation system, and I don't think that would be possible in an apartment. One day though, one day. That would be pretty sweet. Wrapping the cells with paper. Yeah, that could definitely work. And, you know, every build is unique. Some builds might be better with cell holders. Some builds, it might just not be an effective use of space. So it'll really be up to your personal judgment and what kind of battery you're making. So I have a video recorded for the battery that's in my big Mountainboard. I don't know if you guys have seen it. A lot of my online friends and normal viewers will have probably seen my Mountainboard. And in that, I have a whole 3D printed cell holder that holds all 84 cells together. And that one has been holding up pretty well. I didn't release the files or anything because I wasn't super satisfied with the fitment across the entire thing. I found a lot of inconsistency between the different cell pockets, and obviously that could be partly due to 3D printer tolerances and my settings, but yeah, I wasn't really ready to release that file. But anyways, that will be in a video. So if you're interested in seeing a video with cell holders of some sort, at least, I'm not sure when I'm going to edit that, but hopefully pretty soon. I just did another battery video. I've got these streams, so maybe I'll wait a little bit before I edit that. Besides, I just went on Carve PDX, awesome trip, almost 2 weeks ago now, but I have a ton of footage from that that I need to go through, so I can make like a kind of recap video slash, not really vlog, because I didn't really record any talking footage up there, but I think it'll be interesting for you guys to see it anyway. Man, yeah, fish paper, the most disappointing substance, has nothing to do with actual fish. Actually, there is a reason it's called fish paper, but I just can't remember. I think maybe it's because they used it to like wrap fish or something. I'm honestly not 100% sure. What's up, Dawn? How's it going? Fellow X-Board representative. Has X said anything to you about those new X-Board gloves? They look pretty cool. Apparently he brought back the like plastic slider pieces. I'm very interested to see how they look. But he hasn't said anything to me about sending them. Ooh, that's rough. Hope you get better soon. I'm fortunate enough to not have fallen anytime recently. Ah, that makes sense. Packing raw fish. So weird. I wonder if they found out about the like insulating properties by chance. I don't actually know what it's made out of. I figure it's like just like the same as paper, so like made from trees. Maybe it has some plastic in it. Is that why? I guess that would make sense. If it had some plastic content in it, then it would be able to hold in liquids and stuff a lot better. I've always found fish paper to have this annoying trait where if you accidentally get any of your soldering flux on it, it just completely soaks it up, and it's like it never dries. And then you just have these dark blotches on your fish paper. It's super annoying. But flux is kind of like a solvent, weird material, so maybe water or ice or fish juice would stay in it a little bit better. At least enough so that the paper has its structural integrity while the fish is in the freezer, or, you know, whatever it's experiencing. If you're talking about the nickel strip, this nickel strip size is 0.15 millimeters thick, and it is 30 millimeters in width. Vulcanized fiber. Interesting. I don't actually know what that term means, but I assume it has something to do with the way it's treated. Omega-3 paper. Yes. Getting our vitamins in for the day. You know, whoever it was that said laser cut custom nickel, yeah, that would be so sick. Especially because it really bothers me that these strips are not going to have perfectly identical curves on them. And that was one thing that the nickel corner cutter was really good at. But it's hard to do on these like angled corners anyway, so maybe it's not the end of the world. Backfire Zealot. I've not made an upgrade pack for that, but I have friends that have. Other battery builders. I would not be opposed to doing one. It would be an interesting new experience. However, I don't have one in my possession to see like the enclosure size and how it would fit. So it would be a little bit more difficult to figure out if a larger battery would fit or how you would upgrade the enclosure. Because like sometimes with those, the Zealot has like this split enclosure, right? So sometimes with those, they all you would need is like a gasket, and you could do maybe double stack. But I'm pretty sure those cells are already double stacked in there. But yeah, if it has like no name brand cells or like SunPower or whatever, then yeah, the Moly cells are probably going to be a pretty big upgrade. And if anything, while it probably wouldn't be like a performance upgrade, the you'd probably have less sag at the bottom of the voltage curve. So like when you're at low power, maybe like 25% or lower, I know some of those no name brand cells can get really saggy. Yeah, the SunPower ones. So yeah, I don't know how big those cells are, if they're like 3000 milliamp hours or whatever, then you definitely would see a bit of an upgrade. Wow, seriously? That's pretty sad. I mean, it is a 12S 2P, so it's not really able to give you a ton of power. Yeah, I get what you're saying. Monica, you're really trying to get me to get a laser cutter, aren't you? You know what would be sick is if I had a like really nice garage setup, then I could maybe work with a company and try and get a laser cutter. Or what would be even cooler is if it was a router, like a router table, and have like a swappable router head to a laser cutter head. That would be pretty sick. And yeah, I know they're not super expensive, but to cut through like 0.2 thick nickel or 0.15, it probably would need a pretty powerful laser. And I'm pretty sure when you like burn nickel, I'm pretty certain that the fumes are somewhat toxic, because you know, you don't really want to be breathing vaporized nickel. And you can sometimes, when you're spot welding, you can sometimes see a little bit of like the vaporized nickel smoke. And I'm not sure, I could probably get away with like a fume extraction system, and that would probably work, but yeah, it becomes complicated. Oh, you're pretty sick. Have you seen the like tiny 3D printer sized like AliExpress routers before? They're pretty cool. No, I definitely wouldn't risk like not having a filtration system. If I were to do something like that, definitely would be inside an enclosure with a HEPA filter and stuff. You know, like the big laser cutters, ton of air movement, sucking air through there. Also, for the laser cutter, the other part of the air extraction system is keeping the smoke out of the front of the lens of the laser, because if you get soot on the lens of a high-powered laser cutter, the laser is so powerful that it can actually melt the glass of the lens. Or some of them are ruby lenses, I think, but if it gets dirty, it can burn it and ruin it permanently. So that's the other reason why you want to have like air force sucking all the smoke downwards or upwards. I think they're downwards, but yeah, that's true. Like one of the fume extractors. I guess that would probably work pretty well too. I need to get one, honestly. And I've seen like the ones that sit under your desk and then there's like a tube that comes up. It's half broken? What do you mean? Is it lagging? Yeah, exactly. Definitely a mistake that you could accidentally make. I don't know what you mean. Oh, what the heck? How long has it been like that? What the heck? It looks so weird. Maybe I'll just... Oh, what the... It's frozen on the GoPro screen too. Hold on, let me deactivate it and reactivate it. That is so weird. Has it been like that for a long time? Oh my gosh, that's so weird. Deactivate. Reactivate. Oh. I could, I suppose. I just need to restart this GoPro. What I really wanted to do was, oh yeah, the GoPro crashed. What I really wanted to do was use my second DSLR as my main cam, or as my secondary cam, but apparently with like the Canon EOS webcam utility, you can only use one camera on like the same computer. All right, reactivate. Yay. Do you guys want me to switch it? I could have the talking part be the main cam. Yeah, it ran last time though for the entire 2.5 hours and it didn't overheat, so I don't know what's going on. I guess I could put this fan over there. Except that it's like stuck on a bunch of stuff. Actually, I need this this fan for my main camera. It's funny, the actual the Canon R6 is a hot boy, as one might say. It will actually like overheat while you're recording 4K video. Fortunately for us right now, we're not recording in 4K. I think it's just 1080p on the stream. The camera might be in 4K, but it's not as stressful to it since it's not recording to its internal memory card. It doesn't have to do as much video processing. Well, anyway, I guess I'll just keep an eye on the GoPro and see if it does that again. I kind of want to switch the big cam to the 50mm lens and get even closer, but I suppose it can stay how it is. Yeah, I know I'm streaming at 1080. I just meant like the video capture in the camera itself. Because like you can capture in a different resolution than what you stream to YouTube on, since it's reprocessed through OBS and stuff. We're almost there with these nickel strips, only 3 more to cut. They're all kind of close in size, but it is what it is. It doesn't really matter that much. Once they're all welded down, you're not going to be able to notice as much. And then once you put the battery away, wrap it up, no one is ever going to care. Except me, because I'll know that the curves are not exactly the same. But hey, it is what it is. Time is money, as they say. I wonder, I didn't technically mean to stream at 1080p. Yeah, I'll check it out for if I do this again. Because the GoPro is capable of 4K. My main cam is capable of 4K. So there's no reason that I shouldn't be able to. I have like 20 megabyte per second, or 20 megabit upload. So that should be enough to stream in 4K. No, just 1 layer of nickel. Should be enough. Yeah. Laser cutters are what, like 3K? 4K? To save for a while for it, but Could definitely do it eventually. What I really need is some scissors that are actually meant for cutting this. Not tin snips, because those blades are too thick, but... What's up, dude? We've been going for 40 minutes or something? I don't know, I can't see it. I think I've been streaming for 40 minutes. All I've been doing is cutting nickel and talking to people, so you haven't missed too much. I'm thinking that I might be able to get onto welding today, because I've still got another 40-ish minutes to stream. So we might be able to start welding, which would be pretty cool. I actually made decent progress on this battery in the amount of time that I spent on it. It's the one nice thing about having a brick pack, because you skip a lot of the super time-consuming steps. You lose a little bit of it to having to cut all the nickel, but you don't have to wrap every single P group by itself, and you don't have to solder between P groups because the nickel just does that. I actually really like brick packs. Still have to do the same amount of work on like the balancing connectors and stuff, but also this stream will be posted on YouTube afterwards. I'll probably see if I can like download it and cut off the beginning part, because that was such a chaotic mess. But it should be available afterwards like the other one was. So if you want to go back and see what I did, then you can. I'm not sure, man. This is the first battery build that I've like done on stream. And I'm not 100% decided if I want to finish it on stream or not, because I kind of want to get it done. And I'm not like I don't know what days like I can stream and stuff, because I could stream in the evening, but I don't know. My evenings are kind of tight sometimes. So either I'll try and finish it in like one more stream, or I might have to finish it off cam. We'll see. That is a great question. So Maker X is still my favorite ESC to date. I will warn you that there have been some issues with the new series, the HD, or not HD, that's Trampa. There have been some issues with the new like D series, so like the D60, D75, and D100. Some people have had them like short out and get destroyed, but Maker X has been pretty decent with replacing them, but they do require you to send it back, and they won't refund you until they get the broken ESC back. Kind of a weird method, but I mean, what are you gonna do? It's a Chinese company, so you have a little bit of limited help there in terms of CS and like how fast things get to you. But we do have the Maker X DB6, which is my current favorite ESC in general. Super great thermal performance, really great power output, really solid build, and it's not too gigantic. And I've got a Maker X DB6 regular in my street longboard, running 100 amps per side and 50 battery amps per side. And then in my mountain board, I have a Maker X DB6 Pro, which is not being made anymore, running at 110 amps per side and 60 amps battery per side. And both of those two options have been excellent. And I've not really had any issues to speak of with them. I've had a couple overcurrents, but when you're running that high amount of current, it's just something that can happen on VESC, as far as I know. And it didn't seem to affect their performance at the end of the day, so yeah. There's your answer. Maker X is great. The new ones are still a little bit untested, but I'm hoping that they'll work out pretty well because they seem like great options and the price is right. So now we've got all of these nickel strips cut, all 11 of them, and now I'm going to cut the positive and negative ones, which are going to be a little bit shorter. So we'll just bring over this, and we're just going to guesstimate how long it needs to be. We'll say it's going to be about that long. Also, if any of you on here are looking to buy some nickel, I am willing to sell some of this nickel to people that want it / need it. So just let me know. Hit me up. Telegram, Instagram, whatever. Perfect. Now we will curve the edges. I will say I have made almost all of my batteries so far with 0.2 millimeter thick nickel. And I love the current capability of that, like how much it can carry. But it overheats the welder pretty fast, and it's a little bit harder to cut. So I think working with this 0.15 nickel on this battery is going to be pretty nice. Okay, I need one tiny bit longer than that for the other side. How did you guys find the stream? If you're replying in chat, did you find it on the YouTube homepage, Instagram, forum, something else? I'm just curious. Next time I stream, I might try to post it to a couple other places. Probably Facebook would be a good one to post it to. But I started a little late today. Burrito on Discord. That's cool. Yeah, I started a little late today, so I didn't really have the chance to fully publicize this like I thought. Click the bell. Nice. Oh, okay, I see. All right, so how much current can these handle? That is a great question. It's a little bit complicated to answer because I don't know that off the top of my head. I can bring it up though. We have like a sheet that we use typically for current conductor or source, shoot, what's it called? Conductor current carrying capability, I don't know. There's a form on the thread that has a bunch of numbers in it that we typically use. For nickel strips, it's a little bit harder because I don't know if we have a sheet for that. I haven't looked recently. That is a good thing to look up though. And that's very cool. Don't mind the popo in the background. I guess if you're subscribed, I think live streams typically pop up on the like front page. Oh yeah, so pure nickel strip. Thank you for the forward. That's very helpful. So this is 0.15 by 30 millimeter, so it's going to fall in between some of the ones that we have. For example, 0.2 by 30 millimeter, the optimal current carrying capability for that is around 56 amps. And then the way this chart works that we have is it has like optimal, warm, and hot. And I can, if I remember, I'll try and link this thread in the description afterwards. But if you were wanting it to get warm, you could carry 85 amps. And if you were wanting it to get super hot, it could carry up to 113. But we don't typically want them to get hot. Also, that's for 0.2 thick. So for 0.15 thick, it's going to be a little bit different. I'd want to compare like the volume. So like 0.2 times 30 versus 0.15 times 30. And then you could scale it down a little bit. But all that to say, if I had to guess, I would imagine that 0.15 by 30 could probably carry at least like 50 amps easily. But the thing is, the way these batteries work, this strip is going across all of these cells, and you have a ton of surface area here. So really, if you think about how the series connections work, it's going to take the path of least resistance across. So the most that each portion of the nickel would be experiencing at a time is the most that you would be putting through a cell at a time. And that could be like maximum of 30 amps or something like that. So it's more than enough. And for the positive and negatives at the end of the pack, when I solder the discharge connector, or sorry, the discharge cable on it, I always go all the way across from like one side to the other, and I solder in like 3 places. So it spreads out the current across the whole thing. And again, electricity does tend to take the path of least resistance, so it might just go through whatever is the least resistant, but either way, should be plenty for this pack. And this is a 12S8P moly cell, so the most current it would ever see, theoretically, if you're using the cell ratings, is about 30 amps per cell, so like 240 amps max. But there's no like real possible way to pull that much from one VESC, so you know, we're fine. What do I think of the Flip Sky VESCs? I haven't used those, the minis or the pluses or whatever their product naming convention is. But typically, if you use ESCs a little bit under their rated capacity, like amps wise and voltage wise, they do okay. But yeah, there's not really a lot to do about failing anti-sparks. It's just kind of sucky. So good luck, I guess. But I've not used it personally. So now we've got all these nickel strips cut. I'm thinking I might want to start welding now, and then later I can do the soldering of the positive negative before those are welded. But I just don't feel like soldering right this second, so I think we'll just go ahead and start welding. I need to double check if this guy wants to do 4-wheel drive or not, because I can't remember before I solder the positive and negative, because that'll make a difference if it's 2 cables or 1. So let's grab the welder, get the fans set up on it, and then we will continue. So I'm gonna switch this to just this guy, and get the welder out. Also, this is my battery that I use for welding. It's a Turnigy Graphene 6.0, so 6,000 milliamp hours. And it's got some 8mm, wait, is it 8? 6mm bullets? Can't remember. They're very large though. Oh no, it's 8-gauge wire on the large bullet connectors to carry the current to the welder itself. And it does get warm. But it works. If I had space for it, I would probably get a car battery because it's just so much easier. It lasts like forever, and you can just continuously trickle charge it instead of having to deal with like recharging the LiPo all the time. Also, you don't have a LiPo, and LiPos are kind of sketchy sometimes. You bought 72 Molicel P42A. Awesome. That's really great to hear that. Always encourage DIY. Of course, make sure everything is done correctly. And let's see, what are some good tips for new battery builders? Don't wear any rings. Don't wear metal watch bands. Always be aware of where you're putting everything on your table. You don't want anything to accidentally short the battery out. Make sure you use fish paper and insulation in the proper places. What else? Those are a couple important things. If I think of anything else, I'll mention it. So, I'm going to change up my angle a tiny bit here for my GoPro. I think we'll set it like, I guess I'll just walk around and check on the screen itself, because I want you guys to see the whole scene over here. I also need to plug in this fan. Like I said, the battery and the actual welder get pretty hot. So when I'm welding, I actually have to take breaks between different parts of it. All right, I have another fan somewhere. Oh, it's being used. Shoot. You have the same battery, that's cool. No, the LiPo doesn't have a BMS. You don't really, I mean, you only need a BMS if you're like deploying something in the field. For this one, I just balance charge it. So I just have a charger that plug the balance lead into, make sure the cells are balanced, and then when I'm welding, it just gets plugged straight into the welder. No need for BMS while it's being used for welding. I will be plugging in a charge monitor though. I'll show you guys. It's just like an RC car thing. And it has like, it has pins on it so you can go up to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Like an 8S battery, I think. Basically, you just plug it into the balance connector, and when the cells get too low, it'll just beep really loud at you. So we're just going to go ahead and, wait, let me switch to the other view again. Oh wait, this has got the gigantic fan there now. Yeah, we'll leave this in almost the same spot. That'll work. I'll just pull it over here to show you. So this just gets plugged in to the battery. And then you should probably be able to see this. All voltage 12.5, 1, 4.16, 2, 4.17, 3, 4.21. As you can see, the battery's not balanced perfectly. When these batteries get used super hard, like in welding circumstances, sometimes they can fall out of balance a little bit. And it's not a huge deal, but you definitely want to pay attention to that. So other than bypassing oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I already had the balance charger because when I started Eastgate, I still didn't switch this camera view. When I started Eastgate, I had lipos in my pack, so like I didn't really have to go buy that balance charger because I already had it. Not super expensive though for small ones. So let's see, you got everything here. So let's, I wonder if my camera will get mad if I switch the lens while it's on. I'm gonna turn this camera off really quick. Just bear with me for a second. I'm kind of switching to another scene here per se. Camera is nice and toasty. We'll be back in just a second. Don't worry. Quit. And now you should be back. Yes? Yes, we are back. Okay, so let's see, where do I want to put this? I think I want this battery like right in the middle here. And then we will scoot y'all a little closer. And then switch this to manual focus so it doesn't go away. Pop it up. And there we go. So now we're ready to weld pretty much. And this is like extra, but I usually wear safety glasses while I weld just because I feel like it's a good idea. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I think the only difference between the plus version and the non-plus is the anti-spark, right? I'm super not familiar with Flip Sky ESCs because I just haven't bothered. I just always bought Maker X instead. I find them to be better, more reliable in general. The spin 10s are still a touchy subject. I feel like there's some people that have been running them for a while and had no issues. Other people have them blow up on the first startup or motor detection. It's tough to recommend, honestly. But I also can't say don't ever use it because there's people that have success, so then it's just like, well, do I use it or not? So generally I just say I haven't had experience with them. So to weld here, what we're going to do is go ahead and plop down some magnets. And it is worth mentioning that you should be very careful when you're using magnets to hold your nickel down, because magnets are conductive. But it's a very handy way to manage your battery holding, or sorry, your nickel holding. It makes it much easier to get those welds correct. Let me see if I can get a great angle on this for you guys, because I know I'm going to be welding like this. That'll work. Alright, so as you can see, I've got the nickel strip and have it set up with these magnets, and now everything looks pretty aligned to me, so we can just go ahead and start welding. It's as simple as that. One thing to point out, like I mentioned, beware of accidentally crossing the cells once you have stuff welded on them. Let me just double check here that I'm doing the correct one. Positive, negative, through, 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 through. Okay, good. Don't want to accidentally weld on to the wrong cells. So there we go. Now what I do typically like to do when I'm welding is I like to go down and put down a couple tack welds. I think I'm going to weld these at 43 joules. I think that's a good number for these. I might have to tune it as we go along, but so a couple things to point out. I'm welding in manual mode, so it will only weld when I tap the foot pedal. I'm welding with a K-weld at 43 joules currently. That looks like it will be a good amount. I do agree with you there. I love K-weld. It has worked very well for me for a long time. So let's go over a couple things to look at while you're welding. One, especially when you're on the positive terminals, you need to be fully aware of where you're putting your welding probes, where you're tapping weld, because the positive terminal is quite small, and the stakes of accidentally welding off of the positive terminal are quite high, because if you accidentally weld through the shoulder of it, aka like the area where you have your fish paper, you weld through that straight into the can of the battery, and that is an instantaneous full cell short. So you need to be careful when you're welding on the positive side. You also have to be careful when you're welding on the negative side and in general, but particularly on the positive side, it's risky because if you miss, it can be quite catastrophic. I'm doing 6 welds per battery, and you're going to see a couple different patterns here, most likely. I kind of just do what works for me. So like, I like to do my circle patterns on the negative side, and then usually it's more straight on the positive side, just because of how much space there is. So This 0.15 is welding pretty well. I'm a fan. No, it's not 2. 2 would be a little bit light on the welding. These are tack welds, so it's the same exact welding settings. I'm just only putting one set so that it holds it in place, and then I can come back and do the rest of them in a slightly faster succession. And yes, you do bring up a good point. I typically have a little diamond file on hand to get the soot or like buildup off the tips, and I will probably grab that in a minute, especially because the probes are getting pretty hot already. It's quite interesting, like welding 0.15 I thought was gonna be like super chill, and like maybe I could do an entire strip in one go, but seems like I'm not gonna be able to do an entire strip, which is fine, but like would have been nice. Now if I had probe grips, I wouldn't have to be blowing on my fingers to keep them from burning. And that's something that I still need to get printed out. Basically, it's just some TPU that goes over these grips because this copper gets quite hot. And it's just got some heat shrink, so you just gotta bear with it, I guess. 6 on positive is not really as tight as you might think. You just gotta have your welds decently close together. It is getting very hot now though. Whew. So another thing to mention is welding is not all about putting the most pressure that you can on the cell. It's about having the right amount of pressure. So one mistake that a lot of novices make when it comes to battery building is they'll press as hard as they can onto the cells, and they'll end up with welds that either blow through or are not secure enough. So you really want to have just enough pressure to press the nickel onto the cell, but not too much that you're like denting the cell. If you dent the nickel or the cell, you're probably pressing too hard. So yeah, be wary of how much pressure you apply. The most I've ever done is almost an entire 12S 8P pack. It depends, of course, on how much weld energy you're using. So with 43 joules, it should last a little longer. But when I'm doing 54, I can really only do like one side of a P group before I have to chill and rest for a minute. But I'm still able to get almost a whole pack, so. Oh, the other thing to mention when you're welding on the negative side of a cell is you want to avoid the 3mm circle in the middle. As you can maybe see on the stream, each of these goes around and has a space in the middle that I don't touch. That's because there's an internal weld that connects the case to the material inside, and you don't want to weld to that because there's a risk that you can break it. Okay, I just want to make sure that was good. So right now I'm just letting the welding probes cool down a little bit, and then we'll move on to our next set of cells. So again, the pack is not dangerous yet. We have just welds on one side. Maybe saying it's not dangerous at all isn't the most clear thing. Obviously the pack is still dangerous because it's a battery, but right now there's not really a very high risk of you shorting anything. Obviously don't do this on a metal surface or a conductive surface, but right now there's not a high risk because we're only welding on the top at the moment. As soon as I flip this over and start welding on the bottom, then the space between these little welds, or these pieces of nickel, becomes a short zone. And if you drop anything there, it goes boom. So you have to be very careful when you're building brick packs like this. And one method that people use sometimes is they'll put blue tape over the extra, or the strips that they've already welded. I know what I'm doing, I've done this a bunch, so I'm not gonna do that right now, but I might do it on the other side, we'll see. How many boards do I own? Which one is my favorite? So it's an interesting question. I started e-skate with a DIY, and I have never bought a pre-built. So, well, okay, that's not quite true. I have a Revel kit, but that was from when I worked at Revel, and he gave it to me to test packs and stuff. I still have that. My wife rides that. But all of the other boards I have are DIYs. Technically, I have an own board, like DIY kit, which I guess is kind of a DIY. So I don't know if you would count that or not. But my current favorite board is my Mountainboard. Absolutely love riding it. Take it off-road, on-road, tons of battery range, super comfortable. It's got bindings. It's got a 12S 7P battery. 6384 motors. Board Dynamics steel gear drives. MBS bindings. What else? Maker X DV6 Pro. Currently a FlipSky VX4 controller. It's a great time. Second favorite has got to be my street build, which is my Hummy build. Another DIY. Super great deck. Pretty average in terms of performance compared to my Mountainboard. Yeah, Alex, not a great idea to touch positive and negative at the same time, especially when the pack is getting to be done. However, right now, positive and negative are completely separated. In fact, everything is still separated because nothing has completed the circuit on the other side yet. But yeah, once you start building up the potential, every once in a while, especially if you are like a very sweaty person, you can feel a little bit of tingle. It's definitely not the most pleasant thing, so I don't recommend like laying all over your battery. Generally when I press down, I might touch like one group or two, which I think is generally okay. Oh, also on my Mountainboard I have Apex Air trucks, which I love. Yeah, don't lick your e-skate battery, that would be a terrible idea. If I were to build a new Mountainboard, what would be the parts list? Indeed, that is a good question. let's see. Let's start with battery. I have found that my 12S 7P size is a great battery size, but I want like a tiny bit more range. So I'd probably go with this size, 12S 8P. Actually, you know what? No, it's a new Mountainboard. So I would definitely go high voltage. Probably go for a... Also, I'm only saying high voltage because I already have a 12S one. I'd probably go for 16S. 16S 5P. How many cells is that? S 5P is 80 cells, so maybe 96 cells. 16S 6P, probably. And I would probably go with a Maker X D75 Vesk because I would want to test it out, and it's got a anti-spark in it. I would probably go for Apex Airs again. I love Apex Airs. Super, super comfy off-road. Very maneuverable. And they can be super tuned to whatever you want. Mine are still on the stock bushings, which is... Oi. Apparently the nickel was a little bit dirty. Weird. I wonder if I got some finger oil on the probes. Let me grab a file. What was I saying? Yeah, so Apex Airs. Adam, you say they have a big turning circle. That's not really true necessarily, because you can tune them. Also, the tightness of the bushings makes a huge, huge difference. If you loosen them up, you can easily turn on a one-lane road. I've done it before. They're meant to be used with bindings. So, yeah, that's worth mentioning. They're off-road trucks, meant to be used with bindings. If you don't use them with bindings, you might have a hard time. But yeah, you got to tune your setup a little bit. I've just learned to ride with the default ones because bushings are expensive. And the default ones are already riptide ones. So I figured I would just learn to ride with them. So I've been able to get up to 39. Camera sad. Why camera sad? Oh, never mind. My stream is behind. Yeah, so I've been able to get up to 39 on them, which is an insane speed for Apex Airs. I'm not going to lie, it was a little sketchy. And I'm able to turn on a normal road with them. So if you're having issues with Apex Airs, I recommend spending a little bit extra time tuning them. Try out how loose they are, how tight they are. Just mess around with them in general. I think it's something that people miss a lot, is actually tuning their trucks. So, especially on Apex Airs, it's very important. I also recommend 3D printing the 5-degree risers that are available on their website. I have mine on my Hero Bro deck to correct it to be 35 degrees, 35 degrees. Yeah, they're nice and carvy. I don't really have anything negative to say about them, except that it's almost too configurable. Like, you could easily get lost in the sauce. So, yes, the Maker X D75 is good for up to 75 volts. Those are the ones that are still a little bit untested, and we don't have enough field data to recommend them or not recommend them. Or I don't anyway. I have a D75, but I haven't like ridden with it yet. It's just on my test bench. And I might later this year try to build a higher voltage board to put it in. We'll see. I didn't like get it for free. I bought it myself to use, so I don't have to review it or anything. I probably will, but yeah, like I was saying, they're new. Some people have had issues with them. Some people seem to be able to use them just fine. So we're just gonna have to wait and see. Look out for more data. I actually have to stop streaming kind of soon, so I'm probably just gonna do like this last piece of nickel, I think. I've been going almost 2 hours, I think, so not too bad. Got all the nickel cut. Gonna get like a third of the way through welding. You know, the nice thing about like batteries like this brick one are the welding is pretty simple. Alright, that seems to be good. It's really bothering me that these nickel strips are not exactly the same cuts. Obviously it's my fault, but like a little bit OCD about batteries sometimes. So one thing, if you recall a little earlier, I was talking about like how much pressure you use to weld your cells. And if you find that your cells spark a lot or your nickel sparks a lot, one, you might not have actually good nickel, which I know is not the case here. This is 100% pure nickel, or 99.99, whatever you want to say. And I tested that with salt water as well as a grinder, as well as welding here. And so if you happen to not be using enough pressure, sometimes it will spark a little bit. If you let off too early, sometimes it'll spark a little bit. When you have just the right amount of pressure, there really should not be sparks while welding, unless you run into, like earlier, I think I hit a little bit of oil or something that was on the nickel and it sparked a little bit. The reason why it sparks is because it's kind of inhibiting the connection, and there's so many amps flowing through that it just causes a spark. Thanks, Adam. It will be a good build. Hope you have a good rest of your day. I'm gonna get off in about, well, as soon as I finish welding this piece of nickel, and we'll have to pick back up later. We made really great progress though. I'm pretty happy with this. Either like probably one more stream to finish the welding and stuff, or I might have to finish it offline. Also, in case you're wondering, it's very warm in this room right now. Summertime without AC is rough. Surfaces are about 88 degrees in here, so that's a pretty good reference. My welding probes are about 120 degrees right now. The DV6 Pro? Is that what you're talking about? The reason is because they ran out of those MOSFETs or something, like the higher amp ones. And then basically what they did is they stuck those, they switched the MOSFETs to a slightly different one, and then they put those in the normal DV6. So I think the normal DV6 is a little bit more powerful than it's stated right now, I think. Yeah, that's what I was talking about. I'm not sure if they intend to offer the DV6 Pro again or not. It was like a super short run. But yeah, it's for the people that did get it, should be a really great performer. I still haven't taken it over like the normal VESC limit, which is 120 amps. Right now I'm running 110 per side. I want to increase it to 120 soon, but I just haven't gotten around to it yet. I know my battery can take it because 12S7P P42A, quite powerful. No, I've had my DV6 Pro for like, oof, that's hot. I've had it for like almost a year. He actually sent me one a really long time ago. I was going to review it, and then I didn't get it put into my Mountainboard build until 2022, and they had stopped offering them already. I asked him if he still wanted me to make a review on it since it's not being offered anymore, and he said you can if you want. So basically I just haven't gotten to the review for it yet, but it's kind of pointless now because they don't sell it, so it'd be more like just my thoughts on the Maker X DV6 or something like that, if anything, just to like give more confidence in the brand or something. So I do have a lot of confidence in Maker X though. Their customer service is hit and miss from what I hear. I've not really had to deal with their customer service because I've never really broken one of their products, but yeah, it is pretty solid for sure. Yeah, Michael, that's not a bad idea. Maybe like DV6 versus DV70 or D75. I could do like, because I have the special D75, like the super high amp one, the 140 amp one. The very first run. So I could do like, I could do some runs on my Mountainboard of like hill runs and stuff with the DV6, and then swap it to the D75 on like the same settings. That would be interesting. I don't know when I'll have time for that yet, but I definitely want to start my other DIY build soon. As soon as I get these wheel reviews done, I've got a bunch of them backed up, so hopefully I'll record the Mad Wheels review this week and get it edited for next week. Yeah, I know, but I don't have a high voltage battery yet, so obviously if the DV75, or I always add the V in there, if the D75 performs as well as the DV6 at 12S, then the only real reason to get the DV6 is if you don't want an anti-spark. which is a fair thing to want. I personally have never like run a build with an anti-spark, except when I first built my Mountainboard, it had a Unity in it, and it died. So I am totally on the no anti-spark game, but they are very convenient. So if Maker X has integrated one that works well into their D series, I definitely would not mind utilizing that. Getting a little bit of sparking. Probably means my probes are getting a little bit dirty. Got another like 2 minutes to go here. See how much of this one we can get done. I don't think they went cheap. I mean, we haven't really, well, they figured out one issue that they were having. I think there was some resistor or something that they replaced. For some people, like if theirs blew up, they would send them the new one, something like that. I don't think they went cheap. I just think it's new components at a higher voltage, and honestly, I still don't think these people do enough in-house testing on their components. If there was one complaint I have about stuff that comes from China and other countries, even the US sometimes, a lot of them, it just doesn't seem like they test stuff. Like, if you guys saw my VX4 videos, that issue with the firmware should never have made it to the market. Like, yeah, it's very irritating. I wish people would test their stuff, especially the remote, because like it's not that hard to test something like that on a bench. So kind of lame, not gonna lie. I think I can crank out the rest of this piece real quick. Also, it's worth mentioning that it's totally fine if you don't weld fast, but I've done so many thousands of welds now that I have pretty much the exact pressure memorized in my head, so I can just kind of whack them out when I need to. I've been talking, so I've not been going super fast. Oh, what's up, Mario? Yeah, you're not wrong. But in the case of the VX4, I still feel like it's unacceptable because they didn't say anything about it being a beta test, and it very much felt like a beta test. I'm all for doing beta testing for free. I don't really care that much. But like, gotta say, this is a beta test. You're buying something that is not tested yet. It might have issues. For example, the Wave RX iRemote is up here on my wall. Technically, it's a beta run. I feel like it's more finished than the FlipSky one was when it wasn't in its non-beta run. So, I don't know. I'm just complaining. I don't like to complain too much, but yeah, I know. People accepted it because they didn't know, though. I'd like to think that once people started having issues, they didn't keep buying them until the issue got fixed, but some people just can't be helped, really. I know, that's kind of funny, isn't it? Like, adding new features made it worse. You're not wrong. All right, we've got 8 more welds to go, and then we'll be getting off for the day. One mile to go. Woo, toasty probes. Oh boy. Yeah, video games. The voluntold beta testers, you know how it is. What's up, Damon? Good to see you. Unfortunately, I'm about to jump off, but I will be streaming this again, I believe. Maybe later this week. We'll see. All right, guys. It's time to jump off the stream for today. Thank you all for joining me. I got pretty far into this battery. We got 4 of the 11 nickel strips welded, which is about, you know, a third of the way through this whole welding process since we have to do the positive and negative. Hopefully you guys enjoyed learning about some battery stuff and asking questions and hanging out. Mario, are you riding right now? But yeah, thank you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed, and I'll catch you guys next time. If you have any questions, feel free to hit me up on Instagram or whatever. And yeah, thanks again. Mario. All right, well, good luck on your journeys.